Okay.
Well, she had hit on me in a bad way.
Oh.
It's all good.
I just got it. I'm a little innocent on that. Okay, so those are 7 parts of our day. You have them written down? I'm sorry I don't have them on the screen, but you have them written down. Okay, now what I'm going to show you is a prioritization tool. Okay? And it's easiest to do it with what I just, oh my goodness, where did it go? It's easiest to do it with the chunks, since we all deal with chunks. And what we have done is we have taken this prioritization tool, and you can use it in all kind of ways. You can use it in what we did that really helped us was we got with some people who were helping us because we had way too much on our plate. Especially when we resigned and we have no administrative help. So it's like, so how are we going to manage this life? How are we going to do this? And so I'm going to get this stand right over here. Terry, if you could just get that for me, that would help me. Oh, okay. Thank you, brother. So he sat down and he said, you're going to have to get some things off your plate. So what do you do? How do you determine that? What do you get off your plate? And we were like, we don't know. And he said, okay, you're going to have to determine, thank you so much, you're going to have to determine the areas where you believe you have influence. So we did. And we started listing those. He said most people usually have 7 or 8. We had what we felt like were 28, I believe. He said, because you have to get down to the top 3. And we were like, oh, wow. So we had to cut many of these things out. So the things that we were doing, we had to decide what was most important and what wasn't. And so how do you do that effectively? When we got done with it, I think we ended up with 8 instead of 3. But we had cut out such things. For instance, I cut out women's conferences. So it's like I'm not accepting to speak at any more women's conferences. That doesn't necessarily mean overseas, but it would depend even overseas, because that would obviously take out a huge chunk of my time. So do I think, and it's like, well, you have influence at women's conferences, why are you doing that? Because we had to determine, first of all, what our calling was. Our calling at this season in our life, we believe our calling is doing what we're doing right now. LDI, and then in leadership in North America. So it's like ministering at women's conferences for me. Yes, there were a few leaders there, but women's conferences are mostly just women from the district, just women from churches. And that's awesome and that's wonderful, but that's not what we feel God has called us to at this point in our life. So we had to make a hard decision. So we had to go down this list of 27, 28 things and cut out as much as we felt that we could that did not directly affect our calling for this season in our life. My particular calling for this season is writing, producing, materials. So we've been traveling together now for 2.5 years, and now that we have made this relocation change, the goal for 2019 for me is to even pull back more and stay home so that I can fulfill the things that we're doing. I feel like I should be producing product. So all of this stuff we're teaching, we're going to put in curriculum and small group form and all this kind of thing, books and podcasts, and we're going to get all that going so that we can get it more effectively out there. And I feel that's a calling for me. We'll talk about this a little later on. I feel that's a calling for me. I can't emphasize that enough, because just because something is a good idea doesn't mean you're called to it for that season. And so you have to determine what are you called to at this season. And so that is what we're doing. So I'm going to give you the principle of this, but it's a good idea for you to sit down with your spouse, with your family, whether it's financial, You can do this instrument with just finances. You can do it with just topics to teach in your church, just topics of vision for your region, whatever. So we're going to do it with our 7 chunks of the day. Okay, the first thing you do, we have 7 of those, right? And you have them listed in order that I gave you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to go 1, and then we're going to go 1, 2. No, wrong. Where's the thing? Okay, sorry. You're going to go, help me, I'm drawing a blank. You're going to go 1, 2. And then you're going to go 2, I messed up. 3.
4.
That'd be 5.
I think I've done it wrong. I think I've done it backward. Don't laugh at me. It'll come back to haunt you.
I'm laughing at us because we're sitting here.
Why isn't this written down in our notes?
Yeah, because it's 1 and 2, and then it's 2 and 3, and then 3 and 4. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
I don't know why we both went blank.
I know, it went
Yeah.
totally blank. It was like, oh Lord, here we go. Okay, so what's number 1 on your list? I'm sorry? People? Non-family.
Non-family.
What's number 2? Okay, if you have to choose in a day and you have to cut one thing out between non-family and between finances, what are you going to cut out? Non-family. How many of you will cut out non-family to take care of your finances and your career?
Can you say that one more time?
Okay, like,
Say it slow so I can think a little bit.
okay, all right. So you have to choose between non-family people demanding your time or your career and something to do with finances, like paying your taxes or something like this demanding your time. What are you going to say? No, you have to wait.
If it's taxes, I'm picking people for taxes.
That wouldn't last very long. So how many of you will choose number 1, the people? Okay. How many of you will choose number 2, the finances? The majority said number 2.
I'm in a quandary.
I can't make my priority.
The majority of you said number 2. Let's talk through it of why we would choose whatever. Okay? Why you would choose whatever. I'm going to talk through it from the standpoint of number 2 because I would choose.
Talk through it.
I would choose number 2, finances and career. Number 1, if your finances get out of order, if your bill paying gets out of order, if your taxes get out of order, you are not going to have any credibility with society, your church, your family, with anybody else. And so if you choose to miss a deadline on a bill,
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
over going and counseling somebody who might just want to talk through their problem, not even really want advice in the first place, but that's another story. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, what's the higher priority?
Yeah.
And at some point, something needs to come above people's demands on you
Yeah.
because you've got to be very discerning about that. Jesus walked away from multitudes needing him.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that. And that goes back to my original statement. Don't confuse the command to love with the disease to please. All right, what's number 3? What was the number 3 chunk? Home and family. So here's where it cuts out though, babe, right? So if you have to choose, like Terry, hello, do I do this?
Well, I was looking back here at charts, reading. I'm not checking football scores or nothing.
Well, there was one time that I was teaching and the LSU touchdown song came on real loud and he didn't know that we had to talk about that.
It is true.
Oh, I got it. I know what I was supposed to do. Yeah, okay, we've got it. Sorry.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, y'all already laid it on.
Oh.
Process.
Right?
It's 1, 2, 1, 3, 1.
Is it right?
No, 1, 4, 1, 5, yeah, 1, 6,
Oh, I see.
1, 7.
And then 2, 3.
And it's 2, yeah, 2, 3, 2, 4. Yeah,
There we go.
that's how it is. I can't believe we both went blank on that. Really, we reprioritized our whole life and we just said forget it. And so now what we're doing is we're teaching what we're not living.
That's why I call it chapter.
You'll probably have to just go down to the bottom.
Okay. So now we say, number 1, we're going to choose between people and home and family. Here we go. So now it really starts getting harder. So we're going to choose between those people, non-family, and our home and our family.
Choose home.
So how many of you choose people over home and family?
No.
How many choose home and family over people?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to circle number 3. But
Are we doing good?
you're doing good on paper.
Yeah.
But are you really doing good?
Are you doing good? You would be the only one that would really know.
Okay, now we're going to choose between finances and home and family. Career and home and family.
Home and family.
Job and home and family.
You can't have both.
Well, this is saying we have to choose. If there's a choice, what do we choose?
You need your income, your job to pay for your family, so you are prioritizing your family if you choose to be faithful to your work obligation,
Yeah?
or pay your taxes, whatever it is.
Yes? So you've got to have money.
So if we're dealing in extremes, then to help make it easier,
And if you don't feed your family,
you
you're
accept that
working.
that will require more time away, provide better for your family.
And what if we need both parents to work in order to have a better lifestyle? Then what do we do? Choose home and family, or choose? You guys can really speak into this at this point in your lives, can't you? Or choose home and family, or do we choose finances? I think obviously we know that men have to, or most of the time it's the men who need to bring in the income, but I mean, there's no right or wrong here. It's all a matter of choice, but I'm giving a point. This is making a point. Do you choose over time, over home and family? Do you choose take care in order to have a better lifestyle? You see what I'm trying to say?
If it's just lifestyle.
If it's just lifestyle, it's one thing. If it's bread, it's another, obviously. So I would think that provision for your family is home and family. I think that where the rub comes in is if you're trying to better your lifestyle. And then that's relative to everybody, as we discussed earlier. So how many of you choose number 2? Finances. Don't feel bad. I mean, this is not a right or wrong. How many of you will choose number 2? How many number 3? Because so everybody's going with number 3. Okay. All right. Now, yes.
Could it, in the household, couldn't it be a balance between the two? The husband fixes the finances, then the wife fixes the home? If it could be a balance on that? Because
No, we're talking about one decision right now. We're not talking about several. We're talking about one decision.
this is Jesus and the devil.
Yeah. They both stand at the doorknob. Okay, so now we're going to choose between people and what's number 4?
God connection.
People's demands and God connection. That's going to go. Okay, now we're going to choose between finances and God connection.
Connection.
Oh, that's interesting. Wonder how many people go to work or go to the office every morning without making a God
There you
connection.
go.
Okay. What about between home and family and God connection? God connection. All right. Now we have people's demands on our time and number 5, ministry prep and execution. Ministry prep and execution. How many say that? Raise your hands. Okay, that's majority. All right. Now finances at home and ministry prep and execution.
Wouldn't that be like the same thing for?
This is too many decisions.
Right arm surgery?
No.
Our ministry is supposed to provide our finances.
Yes, but that doesn't necessarily just mean job. It could mean paying bills. It could mean filling out reports for taxes. It could mean a lot of things, not just working. Being financially responsible in all ways, I guess. Stewardship. Budgeting. Reconciling your accounts to making sure you're not over budget.
Now,
I think we're at 2.
without integrity.
Yeah. Feels like it's going to be number 2.
Yeah.
I think it's number 2.
How many of you vote for number 2? Number 2, over
Ministry prep.
ministry prep. 3, what's 3 again? Help me.
Home and family.
Home and family over ministry prep versus ministry prep.
Now it's getting real.
Now it's getting real. Now it's getting real.
Maybe we shouldn't hold out. You know what we need to add to this?
What?
We need blindfolds.
A secret ballot?
Yeah. There you go. Now here we go. If you have to give up something, here's the deal. What we're trying to say is you can have all of this, but if you have to give up something, what are you going to give up?
That's good.
Did I just help you?
Good.
What are you going to give up? Ministry prep or home and family?
Ministry prep.
Oh, you're saying it in
Oh, that. Well, I guess.
Give up ministry prep for family.
And now we have number 4 versus number 5. 4 being God connection versus ministry prep. Surely, yes. Okay. People.
Yes.
Here we are.
At some point, we're going to choose, we have to choose the people at some point.
Well,
Over
over personal growth.
No. If you can't grow, you're not going to be able to teach people.
Yeah. So
But that helps me grow.
All right, well, let's vote.
let's vote. How many of you choose people over personal growth?
I'm exhausted.
See how hard it is? 2 of you?
What?
We have to go with majority.
Personal growth.
People, non-family members, people's demands over personal growth.
Which one?
If you have to give one up, are you going to give up? The people or the personal growth?
People. People.
Raise your hands if you're going to give up the people.
Come on, people. Giving up.
Giving up.
Giving up the people. Giving up the people.
Do you want to give up the people?
I'm giving you up, Mark.
Stop.
Are we giving up the people or what are we doing?
That's what you're voting. If you raise your hand, you're giving up the people.
We are making a decision between people and personal growth. If you have to give up people in order to have personal growth, how many of you are giving up the people? Raise your hands down. How many of you are going to give up your personal growth?
I don't like it.
You're overruled. I am so sorry. Okay.
In Markham's stage.
Hang on. The people will get a vote in here. They really will. Okay. between finances and people.
No.
Personal growth. We have to choose finances. Now we're going to choose between,
Wait, let's vote on that one.
oh, okay. Vote on the finances, sorry. 2 and 6. If you choose finances over personal growth, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh, come on. Y'all were.
And how many of you choose personal growth over finances? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Mark didn't
7.
vote at all.
Hey,
So we're close.
we can't have a tie, so you break it.
I'm distraught over the last one.
No, recount.
Okay, all right.
Because there was too much of this.
How many choose finances over personal growth? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
No way.
Well, just let our voice be heard.
How many of you choose personal growth over finances? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Personal, yes.
You are not being good stewards.
Actually, we're taking a class on stewardship.
So, what's the third one again? I'm sorry, Bethany. Home and family over personal growth.
Home and family.
Home and family's gonna win.
Your tone is.
God connection
Connection.
over personal growth. And ministry prep and execution over personal growth.
Put the timing in together sometime. A little bit.
No, it's not. It's not. You can't make it together. It's two different things. So how many of you would give up ministry prep and execution in order to maintain personal growth? 1, 2, 3, 4. How many of you would give up personal 5? How many would give up personal growth in order to maintain ministry prep? 5, 6. Okay, all right. So that gets it right there.
He didn't vote again.
Finances and rest. How many of you will give up finances to get sleep? People. I'm so sorry. People. In order to get rest.
You'll give up people?
Think about it for a while.
Well, that explains a lot.
This is personal hygiene. This is your and sleeping and all of this. You will go give yourself to the people instead of doing that. What? Raise your hands.
People.
You would give up?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
It's just what everybody's doing.
Well, I'm giving up rest for the people.
So another one.
Yes.
I'm picking the people.
This is finances, right?
Hey, he's gonna be.
How many of you will stop paying your bills to go spend time with the people? Bills and rest.
Pay your bills.
Stay up late, pay your taxes, pay your bills. So bills are going to get it over rest. This one is number 3.
Home and family.
Home and family and rest.
Give up your rest for family.
You have to, especially if you're the parents of teenagers, adults, and infants.
We can't let the baby cry.
All right, number 4,
God connection.
God connection over rest.
God connection.
God connection. And 5,
Ministry prep.
ministry prep over rest. How many of you say I'll take ministry prep over rest?
Yeah, we do it all.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And how many of you will take personal growth over rest? Personal growth over rest. 1, 2. Personal growth over rest. Up or down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'm gonna have rest.
All right.
Of course you would.
So, 1,
I think.
1 got 1. 2, 1, 2, 3.
4.
No.
Because you got the,
1,
no.
2, 3. That's okay. 3. Okay. 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wait, you missed one.
1,
1, there.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 5. 1,
2.
2. 7, 6. 1, 2,
3.
3. And 7.
What was number 7?
Rest.
Yeah.
One. Okay.
So here are what you said should be our priorities. Number 4, God connection. Number 3, home and family. And number 2 and 6, tithe.
Finances and personal growth.
Finances and personal growth, tithe. Number 5, ministry prep. Number 1, people. And number 7,
Rest.
tithe.
People and rest, time for last.
Did.
People and rest, time for last.
So is this consistent with what you find?
Well, with what everybody says, no, it's not consistent, but a lot of people don't understand, and in larger groups, it gets convoluted, and then you just have to keep going. And so, because in larger groups, people don't get it and don't understand, and they'll just keep their hands down and won't vote. And so it messes it up. But the point is, do you see how we did that? Take a picture of it, write it down, whatever. Because, this can even go so far as to helping you decide what books you want to read next. Or what, personal goals you have that you want to do next. These kind of
It's a tool.
It's a tool, but it's a very effective tool to help you redeem your time. And then that way you don't just ooze out. You're being very intentional about what you're doing. For example, if you don't have a lot of time for personal growth, you do need to do this for whatever you're going to do next. Okay, what personal growth opportunities am I going to have this month? I've got to cut out something in order to make that happen. And what am I going to cut out? So you see what we're doing there. So it's just a tool. It's a great tool. It's one that has really changed us and changed the way we operate. On several levels. And we'll pull it out. I've done it personally for just me. I don't know if he has, but we'll pull it out as a couple when we have a dilemma. We're trying to decide what to do in a certain area. We'll pull it out. So there you go. Yes, questions?
Do you use this to evaluate where you're currently at, or to plan for the future?
Both. You have to.
You can compare your scores, if you will.
Yes.
You called it a prioritization.
Prioritization tool.
And the process of elimination in some situations, and it's not always going to be the same answer.
Right.
Maybe some areas are weaker and you will.
And it depends on your season of life. When your seasons change, this will change.
What is the name of that book that guy got there?
Thinker.
Willie,
Excuse
it's
me.
not Willie.
No, Thinker Toys is where it came from. Thinker Toys. Thinker Toys is filled with just tons of tools like this that will help in some practical areas like this.
Now that's where the man got it. It was Galen Walters
It was
is the
helping us.
man that was teaching us. And
I can't remember.
Thinker Toys.
It's a yellow
yeah.
paperback book, and it's just got tool after tool after tool. I'll look it up real quick and show it to you.
No. Yeah, yes, sir.
What are some other chunks that we could add to this list
That's a good idea.
that would kind of get us kind of more fine-tuned? What would be some other things that we could add to the list? I mean,
Outside of the 7?
outside the 7, yes.
Well, leadership training. I mean, getting focused on training leaders.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
equipping leaders.
So you can use the same chart for different.
Absolutely.
So you could actually do this for
This is what
technically your ministry,
Thinker Toy.
For what?
for your ministry,
Say
right,
which-
where you want to spend your time in the ministry.
Absolutely.
Just give a value to the
Is it
number.
an offer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hang on, wait till.
So it right there. Let me just do something
Brad,
real quick.
Brad had a
with
question.
them.
Or a
Okay.
comment.
Okay, go ahead, Brad.
Michael.
Is this something, just in your experience, either of you working with ministry teams, is this something that you would do, let's say, at the beginning of the year, with a ministry team? Or with
Yes,
the heads?
yes. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because, now, this is my own opinion. My own opinion. I think sometimes, and boy, some people are going to disagree with this. I think sometimes the leader gives too much leeway to the team.
Right.
I do not mean becoming a dictator and not listening. An apostolic leader has to hear from God on the values that need to be imparted into that group of people. That is, to me, that is not open for a committee or a team to decide what God is saying for a local church. Okay? Now, if God is directing that the value of prayer, the value of discipleship, the value, the worship, or whatever, then, these are the things that we desperately need to focus on this year or right now. Then taking it to the team. What are the aspects of we can't just launch prayer ministry on 5 levels, but what are the areas of prayer in this church that we would have the opportunity? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, what would be the most important for us to start on now? 1 or 2, 1 or 3, is this making sense? Yeah. But you, the leader, has heard from God on what we need to focus on. Then you bring the team in for discussion on some things like this about how to see that go forward. I need to be very clear on that, because this business of starting a year off, well, what do you feel?
Yeah.
Or what do you feel? Or what, it's like, well, what's God saying? It's not what do we feel, it's what God's saying.
That's right.
Then these tools come in. Does that make it clearer?
Are you saying that the leader would, based on direction from the Lord, these are the chunks?
These are the chunks.
And then the team
Very
can help
good.
organize it.
And then the team, right. Because there's no way you can effectively launch 2 and 3 and 4 focuses. I personally have gotten to the point to where I'm not even crazy about every year having a new theme for a church. I think if you're not careful, you can lose yourself in marketing and all that. It's almost like, what is the focus of the church?
Yeah.
I even have a problem now with, okay, we're going to do this quarter, and we're going to do this quarter. Well, it may be more of this is the value we feel that the Spirit is saying. We feel that this is the next value that's coming in, and we're kind of flowing with this. It's not to make it sloppy, but man, when we're talking about the Spirit of God moving, we have to build the tabernacle to flow with the cloud. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll just say this. I'll just jump on out there. We're all friends, right? It's just us.
Yeah, and everybody that's going to be watching.
Oh,
We're
hello.
very close friends too.
Yes, okay. I have a somewhat different view, but I'm comfortable with my view, and I wouldn't be comfortable operating under another norm as a leader. For another year, I am still the women's president of Louisiana. And then whenever district conference comes next year, because we have relocated, I will no longer be women's president. So as women's president, Louisiana only has women's conference every other year. And then on the off years, I instituted a minister's wives retreat, because I felt that was so very necessary. I would love to be able to continue that in some form somewhere, because I just feel that is so necessary. But anyway, we have 13 sections in Louisiana and 1 at-large member, which gives us 14 committee members, plus a secretary, plus me. So that's 16 people right there. For women's conference, most every other district that I know of, they go in and they say, okay, we're going to vote. Let's vote on a theme. Let's vote on speakers. Let's vote on what we do. And that, we've got to put something in writing about how we feel about this. If you're going to have an effective conference or an effective meeting, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 people can't produce that. Ever. Under any circumstance.
Choosing the direction.
Yeah, but a meeting, choosing a theme for a meeting, and choosing a direction for a meeting, and choosing what needs to happen at that meeting can't come, okay, you choose the speakers, you're going to choose the music, you're going to choose the decor, you're going to choose the entertainment, you're going to choose what happens at the afterburner, and you can't do that. Right. It's going to be just a bunch, it's going to be a hodgepodge of nice ideas. But an effective meeting, and this I believe ties into what we're talking about a team at the beginning of the year. An effective meeting, an effective team effort comes from somebody who has gotten the flow and the thought from God. And now, this isn't the business model. The business model won't tell you this. But in the Bible, there was a head, and then the team floated out. The team executed what the head said needed to happen.
That's good.
So, what I have found really works for me in these events is I really seek God about the theme, about what topics we need to consider. And then it's not, okay, who's a good speaker? It's, okay, who does God want to deliver the message of these topics? And most of the speakers I've gotten haven't even been well known, because I just felt like somebody else had that understanding of whatever that was. And then it was like, and we need to have this here, and this here, and this here. Now, I can't do all that. So I want you 3 to handle this and do it this way. And that's not micromanaging. I don't tell them all the details. I just say, this needs to flow out this way. Now take it and run with it. If you have questions, let me know. In churches, in districts, in countries. Hope I'm not getting out of my authority. I don't want to. But it's like, when you are given a position or a title, it would be so good if there could be a cohesive flowing from all departments into one stream. Yeah. So as you've got your church, and it's like, okay, youth department, you don't take off and run whatever direction you think you need to run, and music department, run whatever direction you think you need to run, and missions department, and evangelism department. No, it's like, this is the flow we're going this year. I feel the Lord is calling this church into an extreme time of prayer. So what that would mean is youth department, you're going to center your events, you're going to center your teaching around prayer. Music department, let's get some songs, let's find out some great anointed songs about prayer. Evangelism, how are we going to, you see what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
So that comes from one person.
Yes.
That does not come from a team trying to decide what's going to work best for the year.
That's good.
Does this make sense? Is this 101 and you all know this? It's just that I feel I'm seeing a lot of the disjointed effects and the disjointed results of a lot of people trying to work with the team, but they're giving the team too much authority.
Yeah, that's right.
The team is there for, and committees are there for execution. Committees are not there to decide what needs to be done. They're there to execute what has already been decided.
When you have, yes, brother, go ahead.
So it's more of a coach team, because the coach decides what the game plan is going to be, and the team
Right.
executes it.
Yes.
Right.
And the coach is not a member of the team,
Right.
but the coach is the coach of the team.
Right.
Right.
But how do you build, you've got to build consensus though as the coach, right?
Well, yeah, you do. You have to, yes. You
or
have to build
everybody's going to be just
consensus.
yes people.
Okay, very true. That's a great point. But what we have to start with is God direction.
Yes.
We have somebody, and I mean, it'd be fine if, like, for instance, you feel a direction from God, and maybe you've got one other or two other like-minded
Yes.
people that's in the float that you would bounce things off of. Absolutely. There's no problem with that. Where I think we get into issues is we get people around the table that are not all in, and that they're not in that kind of a flow, and we give them a voice.
Right.
And we get too many hands on the steering wheel. I'm definitely not trying to take this to a dictator type thing.
No.
But and yes, bouncing it off of people close to you and all that kind of a thing. We, for instance, let me give an example. I'm on the Because of the Times Planning Committee. Well, I mean, it's just a few of us on that committee. And of course, we're all thinking during the year and praying during the year and all that. But most usually, the theme of that is going to come off of something that Brother Anthony Mangan's feeling. I mean, we're on the committee of Because of the Times, but, in my opinion, he is Because of the Times. He and Mike Williams. But so we're definitely there. Now, there's not a lot of voices in that room. Is this kind of making sense? There's not just, believe me, everybody that's in that room, bleeds Because of the Times and bleeds the flow of Because of the Times. I'm afraid there's too many planning meetings that's too many directional meetings that's allowing too many voices, that there's just too many voices. And there has to be a God direction. Now, when you get into delegation, I think I'm going to say something about that in a few minutes. But is this making sense? We're not trying to flip anything upside down, but I really believe that this is critical, and this keeps going back to apostolic values. If we are creating a culture of apostolic values, then what's going to come forth is going to be apostolic direction.
Right.
If you allow a non-apostolic culture to start being built, then you're going to deal with a lot of thoughts that can take it off.
I'm going to just take that because of the Times analogy just a little
Okay.
further. So then after this meeting, where all of this is discussed, then they go into, and I'm assuming this is the way they still do it, they go into the creative programming team
At POA.
at POA and say, okay, we had the Because of the Times meeting, the theme is formed. The scripture that we're going off of for formed is blah, blah, blah. Here are the speakers. And at that point, the PK committee says, okay, we will take this and we will take this theme and make it youth-oriented, PK-oriented. And then the creative team says, okay, this is what we'll do for the extra whatevers.
Right.
And then the music people will say, okay, well, we'll start working on songs that will flow into the forum thing. So that's how all of that plays out. So it comes from that very small
Right, yes.
head meeting.
But
and
they're
then-
not in that
But
meeting.
they're not in that meeting.
Right.
Okay?
So, on the day of Pentecost, we had one voice, one God direction.
Mhm.
They didn't get a committee of the 11 or 12 together to decide what it was and how it should spread.
Right.
They just had that one God direction that went out.
Right, exactly. Very good example.
Right. This is very important. We're talking about redeeming the time. A word from God and direction from God is everything. It's everything. And so things get all mixed up whenever it becomes a word from people and not a word from God. And direction from man and not direction from God. Okay? Is that good enough on that?
Good.
Okay, I have 4 minutes to finish this last part, which will never happen. So we're going to take a little bit of time out of your workshop. We'll move you a little quicker in the branches workshop. Let me finish with principle of people, because on redeeming the time, this is extremely important. Your life is the outflow of your trunk, your root and trunk. And when we talk about people, and we're talking about flowing out to people, this, I really wish everybody could buy in to this one statement: if you know it, you owe it. You know, Anthony Moses, who's helping us with all of our recording he can mentor people right now. There's people that he can mentor right now. There's things he knows that other young people do not know.
Come on.
Every one of us. See, the easiest thing is for us to think, well, not me. Well, not me. Believe me, if you're in this room, you can mentor.
Exactly.
There's no other way around it. And so if we know it, we owe it. But we have to beware, because the enemy wants us to pour ourselves into buckets with holes. Buckets with holes. A bucket with holes is a person who does not respond. This is one of the greatest leadership revelations I ever received. And it's this: invest in responders. Now, you can love everybody, but invest in responders. I've taught this before, and people have, some people have had a problem with it, because they feel that I don't love people enough, or I'm not going to care for people enough, or whatever. And I do love people, and I do want to care for people. But if Joe is doing something with everything I say, and Larry is just looking at me and smiling and telling me how great I am and being faithful to church but doing nothing else, I don't need to offend Larry. I don't need to ignore Larry. But he sure doesn't deserve as much of my time as Joe. We have to learn to invest in responders, because the enemy didn't want any of us involved in ministry. But now that we are, the enemy will try to hook parasites to us to suck us dry and take all of our time and put it in to people that are doing nothing with it. And so we have to understand that we've got to invest in responders. I heard one leader say this: in leading, think the game of checkers. Everybody know the game of checkers, playing checkers? It's you move, and until they move, you don't move again. It's a clear move. It's clear direction. And until they move, don't ignore the fact that they did not take that that very intended, okay, so it starts with God connection. People, young men used to tell me that they were called to preach, and my goodness, I'd take them to lunch and spend 2 hours and tell them my story and encourage them and all that. And then I finally realized you're wasting your time. Spend about 15 minutes with them. Tell them, yes, thank God that you are, and the calling of God is great. Take out a sheet of paper. Give them 3 top things to do. Be a part of the prayer ministry. Get your name on the prayer shift at POA. Be 10 minutes early, at least 10 minutes early to your Sunday school class, and offer, check with the teachers to see what you can do to help. And then number 3, help around your house. And I'd walk them to the photocopy machine. I'd put their name on it, the date, and I'd photocopy that and hand that to them, because then now they know that I've got a record of what I told them to do, and I'm not going to forget it. And I tell them to go do that for a couple of months and then come back and talk to me. What was that? A very clear setting them up to win, making it doable. And I just saved myself 1 hour and 45 minutes and whatever lunch would cost for 2. Because now it's giving people clear direction, setting them up. Leadership is about road building. It's about building roads, putting guardrails, and mile markers. It really is. That's what it is. And I think many times we make it very hard. But for people, we need to give people definite mile markers. You have something to add?
This is also very, very biblical, because the whole principle of the Word of God is obedience before revelation. And God does not reveal and reveal and reveal when we're not obeying. There are so many scriptures that back this up. If any man will do, then he shall know. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. The whole principle from Genesis to Revelation is you see something in the Word, you do it, then He reveals more to you. And if we would learn that principle in leadership, it would make our job so much easier. I'm telling you to go do one thing. If you do it, then we'll reveal a little more. But if you don't do it, you're not ready for any more revelation.
Go ahead.
Brother Patterson had something really cool.
No.
What is it, Brother Patterson? Tell us.
Taking small steps to get to giant leaps.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Small steps to giant leaps. Absolutely. Set people up to win. Give them something that they can do, and it's clear. And it will graduate from there. The other scripture in the Bible that says, be ye what of the word?
Doers.
Be ye doers of the word, not only deceiving who? Yourselves. Some of the most, based on that scripture, some of the most deceived people are the most faithful to church. Some of the most deceived people are the most faithful to church because they have become professional hearers.
That's good.
And when people continually come to hear and they never take action, then the word says they go into self-deception. So, this is the reason why it's so important to have clear direction for people in growth and all. Now, when we're talking about identifying responders and then delegate, Brother Patterson, here's where we get into a little bit of this delegation. Effective delegation focuses on what, not how. Effective delegation focuses on what, not how. We say what needs to be done, and we have some borders around it. Obviously, we need this done, and if we only have $100 to work on it, or $20 or $50, then people need to know those boundaries. But then within the what, they grow by figuring out the how. And so many times what we do is we say, this is what needs to be done, then you take 2 steps right, and then you take 2 steps left, and then you come back, and then, no, that's where micromanaging comes in. But you're not micromanaging to say what needs to be done and giving general guidelines. Leave room for personal growth of the people on the how. So effective delegation focuses on what, not how. All right? Good enough on that part? I'm going to run through this very quickly because I've got just a few minutes here on the extra time that we're taking out of the workshop. But I really like this characteristics of unsafe people. Every bit of it is listed, so I'll go through it quickly. I want to add a couple of points to it. We all have unsafe characteristics. Everybody does. This will help us to kind of look a little deeper at people and, first of all, ourselves. Number one, unsafe people think they have it all together instead of admitting their weaknesses. Unsafe people are religious instead of spiritual. Major difference. Unsafe people are defensive instead of open for feedback. If you are a leader and you're not open for feedback, you are so limiting not only yourself but the people you're leading. Don't be defensive. Unsafe people are self-righteous instead of humble. Unsafe people are only apologize instead of changing their behavior. If somebody's quick to say, oh, I'm sorry, forgive me, and they don't ever change it, they're not sorry.
That's right.
Words show possible intention. Action proves everything. We definitely appreciate the good words from people. We appreciate all that. But in leadership, you watch for action, not just words. People who say, I'll do this, or, I'll be there, yes, you can count on me, and then they don't show up. Or they're consistently late. When you're depending on somebody to be somewhere at a certain time. It's this I'm sorry business. There was one man I was working with that he said he was sorry every time he abused his wife. But, that it takes more than words. Unsafe people avoid working on their problems instead of dealing with them. Unsafe people demand, this is huge in leadership. Unsafe people demand trust instead of earning it. You cannot demand trust. You cannot. It has to be earned. It has to be earned. Unsafe people believe they're perfect instead of admitting their faults. Unsafe people blame others instead of taking responsibility. If issues always come up and somebody's always saying it's somebody else's fault. Unsafe people lie instead of telling the truth. I can tell you this: if someone ever lies to you, until that is made right, that person cannot be trusted. You cannot trust a liar. Now, it's one thing for somebody to have misinformation. It's one thing for somebody to not have something right. Oh, I didn't see it. Oh, I'm talking when somebody can look at you and lie, and you find that out, then there's major work that has to be done there.
And if somebody can look at you and lie, and they don't think they're lying, they've convinced themselves they're not lying. They truly have. Run. Just run. Let God be with it. But you can't. You can't. If they convince themselves they're not lying, and they're lying, there's a problem. And you can't fix it.
Unsafe people are stagnant instead of growing.
Okay.
Unsafe people are stagnant instead of growing. In leadership, this is one thing you must watch for in other leaders. I'm not going to connect myself to a leader that is not hungry to grow.
Yes.
I'm going to be nice to leaders that are not growing. I'm going to be kind. But I am not going to put my effort I'm not connecting my effort with somebody who's not hungry to grow. You cannot stay connected to stagnant leaders. Now, I'm not saying don't be nice to them, not help. I got all that. I'm not anti-Jesus, you know. But he left the 99 and went. That was a lost sheep. That's not a leader. We're talking about leadership. This is not a new converts class. This is leaders. All right. And so unsafe leaders are just stagnant. They just got a position and now they stopped.
Yeah.
Some people were great until they got a position.
Yeah.
Some people were wonderful in the church until they received a UPCI license. Don't let that happen to any of us. Interpersonal traits of unsafe people. Unsafe people avoid closeness instead of connecting. These people that are always, aloof, back, you can't get close to me or whatever. Jesus, in my opinion, I don't think Jesus walked 25, 30 feet in front of the disciples. I don't think they built him another campfire than he sat over there by himself and everybody. I know personalities are different, but these people that can't connect with people, unsafe people are only concerned about I instead of we. Unsafe people resist freedom instead of encouraging it. We want people to grow. We want people to experience freedom. It's not a chain of command. Is not meant to chain people under our command. A chain of command is for flow. It's for us moving and growing. Unsafe people flatter us instead of confronting us. Unsafe people condemn us instead of forgiving us. Number 6, unsafe people stay in parent-child roles instead of relating as equals. Don't treat other adults like your kids. Even when we need to be careful how we're talking and interacting with young leaders. We don't need to make young leaders feel like babies. We don't need to make young leaders feel like little bitty children. This parent-child relationship thing. What do we want for our children? We want them to grow up and be independent and be able to run their own lives. This is what we want for leaders. So we want leaders to grow and be able to move out and do things. Unsafe people are unstable over time instead of being consistent. Unsafe people are a negative influence on us rather than a positive one. And unsafe people gossip instead of keeping secrets. Unsafe people. Have you ever noticed how hard it is not to gossip? It's hard not to gossip. But somebody that's always running their mouth and sharing negative things about other people. And you also need to be very careful about your prayer groups, because there's a lot of gossiping that happens in the name of Jesus in prayer groups. and those prayer leaders need to be trained. The way the church people need to be trained. The way you make prayer requests, whatever, it can just turn into gossip sessions. But we're just praying. We had to share all this. No, we need to be very careful, and as leaders, we need to be very safe people. All of this is talking about branches. It's all talking about being more effective. It's talking about redeeming the time, and every bit of this comes in to helping us actually redeem the time. Amen? Amen. Now it's time for a 15-minute break. That book, Safe People is a book.